We are midway through June, and it's becoming evident that the Braves may never lose another game again. The streak is now at 14, one away from the 2000 season for the longest by the franchise in the modern era. This is Battery Power TV. Cory McCartney, along with Graham McAuley. And as Brian Snicker said after Wednesday's night's win in D.C., everything seems to be clicking right now. It could not be more apropos for a team that has outscored opponents by 60 runs. That's 60, Grant, during this stretch.
Yeah, that's a pretty good number. And when we talk about run differential, and we were looking up and down the standings as we've done a lot of these shows over the course of the first couple of months of the season, the Braves were not where you might expect them to be from an offensive standpoint when it came to outscoring their opponents. The pitching staff, I felt like, for the most part, has been holding up its end of the bargain. It was, when was the offense going to show up? The answer apparently was June the 1st, because the Braves have gone on quite a prodigious tear. They're hitting home runs at a pretty record rate for this club and at the highest rate in Major League Baseball. And they are quite simply adding on the runs that were not being added over the first couple of months. So there's a lot of things to like, particularly offensively, about what the Braves have done this month. And it's a big reason why they're on a long winning streak.
So the Braves have hit 13 home runs in their 3-game series over the Nationals just got completed. That's the most ever by a team in the 3 games since they moved to Atlanta in 1966. They've hit an absurd 35 home runs this month, an average of 2.5 per game, to save you the math there. With 13 more home runs to play this month, this lineup is on pace to become just the 4th team ever to have a 60 home run month. They would join the 2019 Yankees, who had 74 in August of that year, the 2021 Blue Jays, who hit 66 in September, and the 2019 Mariners, who had 60 in April. Further illustrating how deep the impact has been, the Braves have had 5 players in the top 40 in homers in June, 11 who have hit multiple home runs. That depth, given the monthly total, it shouldn't be surprising, is the most by any team in the month. Red hot does not describe what this offense is doing, Grant, and it goes well beyond just these home runs.
No, it certainly does. And you mentioned the deep impact that this is having. Maybe with the Braves All-Star campaign, they can get that poster done up so that they can do a remake of that cult classic, which may or may not be as popular as Armageddon, but I digress. As you look at what the Braves have done this month, scoring 101 runs, that's the second most in Major League Baseball, just a handful of runs, 3 runs, in fact, behind the San Diego Padres for most runs scored overall. So the home runs are great, and Braves fans love seeing those. But the question had become for a long time, okay, great, you're hitting a whole bunch of home runs, but where are all the runs coming from? And why are these home runs not coming with anybody on base? That is something that has corrected itself quite well. The Braves as a club this month have a 151 weighted runs created plus, which is second only to Toronto. And again, we're not talking about a big margin here. And the Braves, from an offensive standpoint, they had not been rolling in an overall, if you look at up and down the lineup, you'd have a couple of guys that were really carrying the weight. And then you'd have a couple of guys that were okay here or there. And then 3 or 4 that just you weren't getting what you needed to out of them. That has changed dramatically, because the wins above replacement, according to Fangraphs, for the Braves offense this month, which is the 14-game winning streak, is 5.6. And that is second only to the Toronto Blue Jays, who are, of course, waking up as an offense as well. But I went to do some digging about everyone's least favorite stat about the Braves, and that was all of these strikeouts are absolutely killing us. And they were striking out at a rate of nearly 25% in the month of April. You turn it to the month of May, it was the worst strikeout rate in all of baseball at nearly 28%. Well, I'm happy to tell you that the Braves have moved well down into the middle of the pack in baseball, which is acceptable rate of just over 20%, just under 21%, I should say, on their strikeout rate in the month of June. And that is a market improvement of nearly 8, almost 9% over the rate that they were striking out in the month of May. So if you were looking for when are the Braves going to change their approach, and when are they going to be able to change the productivity of this lineup, well, you knew the strikeouts were going to have to come down, and in fact, they have.
Hey, you went 14 straight games, and a lot of things are obviously going to go right in your favor. And I mentioned players with multiple home runs this month, and one of them is Michael Harris II, who had hit the first 2 of his career over the last 3 games. The young center fielder takes us on to our next topic, which is this impact they're getting from rookies. The Braves are getting it in center and in the lineup from Harris, and within the first bullpen, and now the rotation with one Spencer Strider. Look, the Padres' Mackenzie Gore may be the leader right now for NL Rookie of the Year per Vegas. I know the Cardinals, Nolan Gorman's right there behind him. I know we've got a long way to go, but the Braves are going to have a say in who takes home that award. Harris and Strider entered 2022 as the top 2 prospects in the system. We've seen touted players come up and have their struggle, But these two performing at this level this fast has really been a key storyline for the team amid this surge.
It definitely has. And when you look at what Harris added to the Braves, it was a consistency of knowing that you were set up in center field. It has had just a trickle down effect, honestly, on what else has gone on in the lineup. And yeah, getting Ronald Acuna Jr. back in right field every day was kind of part B of that plan. But now with Adam Duvall swinging the bat well and covering left field at a much better rate, I feel like, than he was in center, because he's a good corner. In fact, he's probably a great corner outfielder. He's got a Gold Glove to back that up. Now he's in a more comfortable position. Now he's producing. But yeah, when you look at what spurred all of this change and what allowed for these things to happen so that the club could be a little bit more complete, it was the arrival, I think, of Michael Harris, who has absolutely lived up to, and then some, the expectations, even the most optimistic, I think, expectations of what this kid could add. I mean, let's point out that we're talking about a less than 20 game sample size here, but he's already put up one F-WAR, which is a pretty good run in 20 games. You start doing the math on that, multiply it by 8, so over 162. Is this an 8-win player? We may find out in the future. Is that the expectation for 2022? I don't know if that's the case. He's already 4 outs above average in center field, which is outstanding in 18 games. I don't know that I need to dive too much deeper into that because we cover a lot of stats, but it just lets you know this is a kid that can go get him in center field with the absolute best of them. He passes the eye test. He passes the metrics test as well. And I think that as we look forward, is it sustainable for him to continue this level of production? Probably not. I mean, he's not walking a lot. His walk rate is down about 50% of what it was from his minor league days, but I don't think it's overly aggressive in his approach at the plate. So those walks will show up. But my question will, of course, be, will he be able to continue to adjust as the league adjusts to him after that first 25, 30, or 40 games, where the league does usually start to catch up and say, okay, well, we're not throwing him fastballs there anymore. We're going to throw him nothing but sliders and off-speed stuff and see how that goes for a while. That'll be the question. But for right now, Michael Harris has shown he is certainly not in over his head when it came to jumping from Double-A to the big leagues.
And Grant, you mentioned it solidifying center field, but also, with Michael Harris II, it was strengthening up that back end of the lineup. And then, of course, with Strider propping up the back end of that rotation after moving over from the bullpen. It's almost reminiscent of last year remaking the outfield, the moves at the deadline that turned out to be all perfectly into, and Alex Anthopoulos just keeps batting 1,000 there. Harris is 5th among all rookies in FanGraph 4, 4th in weighted run created plus. You mentioned his outs above average. That's 2nd among all rookie outfielders. And then meanwhile, Strider has now made 4 starts, had his finest game yet against the Nationals, allowed 1 hit, over 5 2/3, a career high, 11 strikeouts. He had a 41% whiff rate on the night, including nearly 50% on that just ridiculous slider of his. He's now the 3rd pitcher in Braves history to fan 11 in less than 6 innings. Only Julio Teheran in 2013 and Tony Cloninger in 1965 have done that. And I said Mackenzie Gore is the NL frontrunner for Rookie of the Year. His WAR is just 0.3 ahead of Strider now at 1.3. I mean, it's just, you think about that outing against the Nationals, we're seeing the real height of what this guy's capable of.
Yeah, it's tantalizing. The 11 strikeouts in 5 2/3 innings, that'll certainly get your attention. But how about the 1 hit he allowed and just 2 walks, so 3 total base runners? This is something that I think is going to be a trend with Spencer Strider. He is incredibly hard to hit. Opposing hitters in his relief role and in his starting role, still hitting well below 200 against him. Yeah, he's given up a couple of home runs as a starter, but overall, it's the ability to miss bats that is extremely impressive. How impressive, you may ask? Among pitchers in all of Major League Baseball who have thrown at least 40 innings, Spencer Strider is leading MLB with 13.91 Ks per 9. It is a lot of strikeouts, and we're accustomed to seeing that when Spencer Strider's on the mound. His average fastball velocity of 98.3 is second only to Hunter Green, but you can go ahead and take Hunter Green's ERA and divide it in half and then go down, and you'll find Spencer Strider there. So he's getting the results with that high-octane fastball as well. And it's incredibly impressive what he's been able to do, because when you look at who's leading the Braves staff and wins above replacement, you'll find Max Fried, you will find Kyle Wright, and then you will find A.J. Minter and Spencer Strider lockstep, not far behind them with that 1.3 FanGraphs WAR. So it's been an impressive run for Spencer Strider. He's got quite a few starts ahead of him to continue to build to that, and we'll see what the rest of the 2022 season has in store for him. But the Braves needed this shot in the arm, no pun intended, and they got it in the form of Spencer Strider, and he is delivering in rotation.
So the good times keep rolling in the wins column, but the Braves did suffer a loss this week with Ozzie Albies fracturing his left foot in a swing requiring surgery. He could be out until at least mid-August. For now, that means Orlando Arcia is the man at second base. Veteran Phil Gosselin was added from Gwinnett as Albies went on the 60-day IL. Look, Albies was struggling. He was hitting below league average for the first time in his career. 244 average was the lowest of any of his 6 seasons, but no full-time second baseman has more outs above average this year. So the defense was still there. There's really no way to downplay. I mean, this hurts. You know, our RC has been strong, but he's not Albies. He's never had a weighted run created plus of 100 in a season. But Grant, I think the depth of this lineup, as we discussed, and the benefit of the DH in the National League maybe makes this as not as debilitating a blow as it could have been.
Yeah, and all you're asking Orlando Arcia to do is to come in and play capable defense, which I think he's going to be able to do. It may not be Ozzie Albies level, but he has a good arm, and I think that's going to help him, particularly at second base. And just defensively, maybe you place him a little bit differently because the range is not quite the same as it is for Ozzie Albies. But you mentioned the weighted run created plus. It's a robust 184 right now for Orlando Arcia, who is doing things at a rate that he has never done it at the big league level and never done it at the minor league level. And keep in mind, in 2016, this was a consensus top 10 prospect in all of baseball as a shortstop coming up in the Brewers organization. Yeah, he didn't really cash in on all of that cachet, if you will, as a prospect, but he has played every day in the big league, so he knows what goes into that, I think. And if anything, when guys lose the opportunity to start every day and they have to start grinding and working for it the way Arcia did in 2021, maybe he's going to look at this as that second wind and that second opportunity to really step up and make some contributions to this Braves club. And you're asking him to hit toward the bottom of the order. You're not trying to plug him in to an Ozzie Albies featured spot in the lineup when Ozzie is going right. He could end up batting fifth. He could end up batting fourth. He might be batting second at some point in the season. Those are not things you're going to be asking out of Arcia. You know, is it realistic and sustainable for him to continue doing what he's doing right now, batting 375 and OPSing over 1,000? Of course not. But can he be a contributor who can help the Braves through a couple of months in which they really need somebody to play every day? I absolutely think he can. And this is another one that you look at Alex Anthopoulos making deals that help the club with depth. This was one that happened well over, a year ago. And it is just now bearing fruit in a big time way for the Braves. And they're fortunate to have somebody with his experience and right now who appears to have made some adjustments to become a better hitter than he's ever been at any point in his career.
I mean, he's been great in spurts, right? I mean, this has all coincided with a red hot stretch from him. If you go back to May 3rd, he's got an OPS of over 1,300, but it's been 2 years since he's had consistent playing time. I mean, I think the hope with Albies was that he'd eventually turn it around because he has that track record. With Arcia, the hope is he just keeps playing above what the resume says right now that he should be, or what the resume of the last few years says that he should be. So the longest winning streak in baseball this season just keeps rolling along, and the Braves will look to continue it as this stretch of 9 series versus teams with losing records comes to a close. 3 against the Cubs in Wrigley Field, Charlie Morton, Kyle Wright, Ian Anderson on the hill for those games. But after this, Grant, the Giants, Dodgers, and Phillies, business is about to pick up, and it makes this weekend feel all that more important when you think about them getting things going and finally, ending all this positive play that they've had on a positive note.
Well, if they could have cashed in the way that you and I were talking about 3 weeks ago on this run of the schedule, or almost 4 weeks ago now, this is exactly what the Braves needed to do. Did you or I or anybody else expect there to be a double-digit winning streak? Not necessarily. Did we expect it to be a modern-day franchise record winning streak potentially? No, we did not. But this is exactly what the Braves needed to be doing. And people can try to take away or downplay what they have done over the past 2 weeks. But let me tell you, you're supposed to beat these teams, and the Braves have done it at a rate that nobody else this season has been able to do it. So they have elevated themselves in the standings. They have turned their season around, and yes, they are going to get tested and tested frequently over the next, 9 or 10 games that come after that, with having to face a club like the Giants. It'll be a challenge. The Dodgers, I don't even need to say anything about what that means to the Braves in terms of rivalry. And then you've got to get right back into divisional play against somebody like the Phillies. That's a much different club than, say, the Washington Nationals or the Miami Marlins. No offense to the latter of those, who I think is a tougher opponent than the Nationals proved to be. But yes, the Braves did exactly what they needed to do to cash in this opportunity, finish strong over the weekend, come home. That's a huge thing. You get to be at Truist Park to face both of these NL West teams. You don't have to fly across the country again to do it. I think that could be a little bit of value for the Braves as well, but they have to come in, I think, riding high with what they've done thus far in June. Really the only loss they have had this month, and I say that kind of in the, not the literal sense, but more the figurative sense, was losing Ozzie Albies. So this is a club that has been challenged a little bit, but is overall clicking on all cylinders and wants to keep that run going.
One thing I can't wait to see in this series of Wrigley Field is the anything you can do, I can do better between William Contreras and Wilson Contreras.
Yes.
So two of the most red hot bats when you're talking about catchers in baseball right now. And that's all going to give us plenty to talk about this Sunday on From the Diamond on 92.9 The Game. So make sure you tune in and you will not want to miss that. And make sure you also hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to get an alert every time we drop a new episode here on Battery Power TV. Until next time, I'm Cory McCartney. He's Grant McAuley. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon, Braves Country.